episode number 80. Hi, you're listening to the Careers Beyond Motherhood podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help working mums like you to thrive in your careers and in motherhood. I share tips, strategies, and inspirational conversations with awesome women to help reduce the struggle in your juggle.
Time for say, Mummy.
Hello, and welcome to the show. I hope you are well. It is great to be back with you again today after a period of busy. As you all know, if you've been listening for any length of time, I was promoting my group coaching program last week and the enrollment is now closed, and I'm excited to jump in today with the group of ladies who are embarking on a 90-day journey to find work that they absolutely love. So that's all exciting, but it means that things are less crazy for me right now. And so today's episode, we are switching gears a little bit away from talking about careers and moving to focus on parenting. So I don't know about you, but I sometimes find the whole parenting side of working motherhood to be challenging, especially when children go through different phases, and just as you think everything is fine and you figured out the strategy and the way you're going to deal with certain things, they change, and so you then have to adjust and change again. So I have an amazing guest on the show this week. She is a peaceful parenting expert, and she is going to be sharing some amazing strategies with us about parenting and how you can approach things in maybe a different way than you're used to, but in a way that is effective and keeps both sides calm, so the toddler or the young child and the parent. So I can't wait to dive in so that you can hear all of the awesomeness that Sarah Rosensweet has to share. So let's go. Hi Sarah, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here. Before we get started, could you introduce yourself and let the audience know a bit about you?
Sure. Hi, Janine. Thanks for having me. My name is Sarah Rosensweet. I'm a peaceful parenting coach, but my main job is mom of three. My oldest son is 18, my middle son is 15, and my daughter just turned 12 yesterday. So I am blessed to be their mom and also doing work that I love. Oh, and I live in Toronto. That's the other thing.
Awesome. Okay, so there's lots that I want to dive in and talk to you about. I'm so excited. Before we go there, your children are a lot older than mine. I'd love to hear about what your kind of career journey was pre and post motherhood. So what did life look like for you work-wise before, and then how did things transition, or did they transition after you had
Sure.
your children?
Yeah, so it was very different before. Before I had kids, I worked in the film industry, in the wardrobe department as an assistant costume designer, mostly on television series. And I loved that job. Like I really did. I loved it. It was rewarding and interesting and well paid, and it was just a fantastic job. And I really thought that I was going to do the typical in Canada we have a 1-year maternity leave, which is really fantastic. And I thought I'd do the year-long maternity leave and then I'd go back to work. That was my plan. But after I had my first son, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't leave him after a year. It just wasn't, so my maternity leave turned a bit longer, but then I really realized that I didn't want to go back to that lifestyle of that job. Like I loved the job itself, but a good week, like an easy week, was about 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have involved, having a nanny that would be doing the majority of the caretaking of the kids. And then I had my son, my second son, and I just really realized it was difficult for me actually to give that up, because it was a job that I did really love. In fact, after my daughter was, I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. And when my daughter, my youngest, started kindergarten, I was like, okay, this is time for me to start working again. And I wasn't sure what that was going to look like, because I knew that I didn't want to go back to the film business. And I actually had a conversation with my old boss, who had turned into a friend. And I said, who's your assistant these days? And she said, oh, I'm actually hiring. I've got interviews tomorrow. And there was this big part of me that wanted to say, me, I'll do it. I want to come back. But I knew I couldn't, because it wasn't the kind of life that I wanted to live anymore. And I didn't And yeah, so basically that's a very long way of saying that I had that career before motherhood, but then motherhood took me on a different path and I had to find something else. So that's when I started thinking about what else could I do? What do I love? And during those 12 years as a stay-at-home mom, I really immersed myself in that sort of parenting philosophy and big ideas about parenting. And that was sort of like my type A brain, um, finding something to stimulate itself with. And so I decided that I wanted to help parents. And it was quite natural because I was sort of always that mom on the playground that people were like, what should I do about this thing? Or give me something to read. Or, I knew a lot at that point. So it was more just a matter of making it official.
Oh, wonderful. I love that the fact that you loved what you did before, but things shifted for you after you became a mum. I had a similar experience where what I thought I was going to do after maternity leave wasn't what happened. I figured I would go straight back to work, quite similar to you. But once you have your babies, your perspective changes. And it's great that you had that time off with your children, such a long period, and then you were able to say, okay, right, I want to get back to work and figure out what is it that I actually want to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was a completely different thing, as you can see.
Yeah. And the work that you're doing now is just so amazing. So talk to us a bit about kind of some of the parenting philosophies that you came across, the ones that kind of stuck for you and the ones that you now help your clients around.
Yeah, so I call it my gateway book. Was a book that I read when my first son was maybe 18 months, called Unconditional Parenting. And it is basically the all of the research that peaceful parenting is based on, in terms of working with your child and focusing on the relationship with your child and helping them build intrinsic motivation and self-discipline, rather than traditional parenting is, or sort of conventional parenting relies more on what will happen to you if you don't do this, or if you do this thing, right? Like, it's all of the motivation and discipline is from the outside. So,
Mm.
we're told, put your child in a timeout if they're not listening to you or they're doing something that you don't want to do. Well, that timeout is the child isn't given a choice to stop the behavior. They're not doing it out of fear, right? So if you say, if you don't stop that right now, you're going to get a timeout. Well, the child is not, choosing on their own free will to stop the behavior. Not saying that they don't ever need help from us, but it's all about what's going to happen to them, rather than, if you don't stop pulling the dog's tail, it's really going to hurt the dog, and we don't want to hurt the dog, or whatever. It's about what's going to happen to me if I do this thing. So that was sort of a big philosophical shift when I started reading about developing the relationship and self-discipline and not using rewards and punishment. And that's a great book for anyone who's really research oriented. But the drawback with that book is that it's not a how-to book. So I don't often recommend it to parents because it tells you why you shouldn't use conventional parenting, but not what you can do instead.
Mm.
So I kind of muddled along that way myself for all the years that I was raising my kids. And then finally I read, I, I think when my oldest son was about 12, I read Dr. Laura Markham's Peaceful Parents, Happy Kids. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is like this is everything that I've cobbled together myself. Somebody's written a book about it. And I just was kind of like one of those, the sky opens and a bolt of sunshine comes down. And then I found out a couple of years after that she was offering a training. So I actually trained with Dr. Laura. And so that's how I came to be a peaceful parenting coach. But really it was the approach that I lived and practiced with my kids from when they were little. I just kind of found her packaging of it fit
Yeah.
exactly.
It's amazing. I think I I've always said before I had children and shortly afterwards that I wanted to not be a mom that needed to shout at my kids or put them into punishment. And I wanted to find a way that it could be like a collaborative approach and that they would listen. And then I found, like, when I got into toddlerhood with both of them, it's become more challenging. And I'm at the stage where it's like, okay, I need to find strategies that work, because things that were working before are not necessarily working now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we connected, I was like, okay, I'm losing it a little bit. Like, I don't really know what I should be doing. And you helpfully sent me some resources, and I went into your Facebook group. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was kind of spending special time with each
Mm-hmm.
child, even if it's only 15 minutes. And what I realized was that because it's so busy, and because you have two children, it's harder to find the time where you're just spending time with one of them. But yeah, been more intentional about that over the last few weeks, and actually my son's got used to that time, so then he's now asking, is it mummy and Eli time now, and when are we
Aw.
gonna, can we do the Legos? And so the way that we do it now is that I pick him up from preschool earlier than my daughter. That's always been the case, but normally I use that time to kind of fix dinner, and sometimes he helps me, sometimes he's busy doing his own thing. But now we make sure that we have some time in that period where we're doing something together. So if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, and now he's starting to value that time. So he's like, oh, we're not going to go pick up Naya yet, are we? Because I want to spend time with mummy. And
Aw.
I've noticed how much he looks forward to that time, and there is a bit of a difference in terms of behavior. So I realized that
I
a
was going
lot
to
of
ask
the
you.
struggles.
So have you noticed some shifts in how is he more feeling more cooperative, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think he is. And I think I noticed, I'm just paying attention also to like when the behavior, when things play up, when he plays
Mm-hmm.
up, and it's often when he's not getting attention. So if I'm on the
Mm-hmm.
phone or if I'm in the middle of cooking, he wants attention. So then he'll start acting crazy so that he gets my
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
And so the other thing was the post that I read. I think it was a blog post that you wrote, and you were saying to shift your mindset and realize that they're not trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was just like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm like, actually, he's just acting on his emotions. He can't control them right now, and he's not trying to be difficult. And just shifting my mindset around that has made me a lot calmer.
Yeah. So one thing I always tell parents is this is that 6 words is he's doing the best he can, right?
Right.
So once you have that, once you shift your mindset to, they're doing the best they can, it's so much easier to be patient. Because if you feel like, oh, he's giving me such a hard time, that automatically is a frustrating place to be, right? Like
Right.
when you feel that your child's giving you a hard time on purpose. But
Yeah.
if you really can say like, oh, he's just having a hard time, he's not giving me a hard time, he's doing the best he can, right away something shifts inside us, I think. And I use that for all difficult people that I encounter in my life, like not just if my kids are having a hard time, but like if I meet somebody who's rude, like, oh, they're doing the best they can. And it really
Mm.
helps. It helps me in like my everyday life to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say just that small bit of information that you've given me has made a huge difference to my mindset. And what are some of the other kind of light bulb moments that you've seen parents have? That's probably one that other people say has been really
Yeah.
helpful for them. Are there any others?
Well, just when you were talking about the increased connection and how you see a lot of times when your son is, making mischief or whatever as a bid for attention, um, I think that we are. You hear so much like, oh, he's just doing that for attention, ignore it. Like that's sort of the conventional wisdom about it, right? But if your child was acting out because he was hungry, you would never withhold food from him. Or if he was tired, you wouldn't keep him awake, right?
Mm.
So I think we have to recognize that attention is a vital need for children. In fact, evolutionarily, they are wired to have our attention because that's how they survive. So, you mentioned when you're trying to make a phone call and all of a sudden, your child is like wanting your attention. It's because evolutionarily, a tiger could jump out of the bushes if you're not paying attention to him. So, he has to make sure that he does have your attention. So I think just recognizing that is a light bulb moment for parents too. Like they're not just trying to be bad. They actually just need our attention. It's part of what it enables them to survive as little humans.
Yeah. I think that's really brilliant. It is a- and it's a lot around kind of looking at the way you were parented and assessing some of the things that you've just taken forward into the way that you raise your children, and
Hmm.
saying, does this work for me as a parent, and then also does it work for my children and the way that I'm raising raising them. And so yeah, I think being more intentional and mindful about that is something to be thought about as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you were talking about special time and how, your son is just really looks forward to that every day, and he loves it. It's like you're building your connection with him, right? And that the connection that we feel with another person is what makes us want to do our best, or what makes us, what makes children want to be more cooperative as much as they can manage, is when they feel that they have that strong connection in that relationship. Like if you think about, a teacher or a boss or someone that you've had over the years, somebody that you have a lot of respect for, that you feel close to, that you like, that you have a good relationship with, is the person that you want to do your best work for,
Mm.
versus somebody who yells at you in front of your colleagues and tells you you're doing a bad job or whatever. You're not going to do your best work for that person. So as humans, we're really motivated by our relationships with other people, and it's just the same with kids. Like they're motivated, of course I'm not talking about love, because they love us and we love them no matter what, but when they feel close and connected to us, that's when they really want to be cooperative. And I see that with my teenagers. I'll ask my 15-year-old to do something, and I know he doesn't want to do it, but he'll do it for me because he cares about our relationship.
Mm. I love that. And for you, what age would you say is like appropriate to kind of start putting these principles in place? You might say from the get-go, but for many parents, I think the toddler phase is really challenging.
Yeah.
Where, especially like my daughter's just about to be 2, so she's in that phase where she wants to do what she wants to do whenever she wants to do it, and she doesn't really respond well to any kind of guidance.
Hmm.
So I can see that with my 4-year-old, he gets it, and he's kind of he pays he responds. But my 2-year-old just seems to just, doesn't matter what I say or what I do, she's just doing her own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And like,
think around that's pretty typical, like toddler, sort of between 14 and 18 months. Babies' needs and wants are the same thing, right? Like if they want something, they need it. Like that's, food, comfort, whatever. But around 14, 18 months is when those two things start to diverge. Like she might want your phone and she's convinced that she needs your phone, but you're not going to you're not going to give her your phone, that kind of thing. So I think that's sort of when we start to be a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more intentional in our parenting. And okay, so how can I help her with her big feelings about not getting the phone? How can I hold her while she cries and empathize with, I know you would love to play with mommy's phone, wouldn't you? But you're still not going to give her the phone. You're just going to support her through the the difficult emotions that she's experiencing, between that gap between what she wants and what you're willing to give her.
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, so good. I feel like you're giving me a coaching session on this podcast.
Well, and I mean, I think the phone is pretty universal, right? Toddlers wanting to have our phones. But I think that the connection, you're not, of course, your child, the biggest part of the biggest part why connection is important for very small children is because they feel, that all our feelings are okay with them, and or sorry, all their feelings are okay with us, and that there's that space for them to have the big feelings. And when they feel close and connected to us, they can let out the tears, and it doesn't just turn into anger. They can actually get to the crying.
Hmm. Oh, such good stuff. Such good stuff. So if people wanted to kind of learn more, where would you direct them, and what kind of resources do you have? Because I'm pretty sure that every one of my listeners would find what we're talking about useful in terms of parenting, and maybe trying a different way of parenting if they're
Yeah.
struggling at this point.
Yeah. So you can go to my website, which is sararosensweet.com, and there's a link there to sign up for a really great free resource that I have, the How to Stop Yelling at Your Kids, which is a free e-course. And that is 21 days, and a lot of parents have gone through it and found it really effective if you want to stop yelling and sort of learn a different way of parenting. And also, I have for your listeners the special time guide. You touched on special time a little bit,
Mm.
and I'll just briefly say for anyone who's interested, it's basically setting aside 10 to 20 minutes a day that you can have focused, intentional one-on-one time with your child. immersing yourself in their world. So you mentioned playing Legos with your son. So it's playing Lego. It's not, baking cookies with an adult, cookbook or whatever. It's playing make believe. It's playing, um, Frozen with your daughter or whatever. I'm sure Frozen is outdated, but it's immersing yourself in your child's world with play. So I do have a free guide which explains special time and then also gives roughhousing ideas, because roughhousing is an awesome thing to do in special time. I don't know if you and your son have done that at all.
Yeah, we have. We made up a new game. I think it might have been from your guide, or where we have to touch the couch, where he has to touch the couch, and now he loves it. So I kind of
Oh,
stopped
good.
him from getting there, and then he's like, ha, ha, ha.
That's great.
So it's really cool.
Yeah, roughhousing is great for kids, especially because they go around, feeling powerless all day because they get bossed all day and told what to do and what not to do. And then if you can roughhouse with them and they're always faster and stronger and more clever than you are, and they get to laugh at, you not being able to touch the couch and he always gets to touch the couch, that really helps them work through a lot of that, those feelings of feeling powerless, which will also make them more cooperative. So there's always an end game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say as well, that doing like playing with them in a way where it's them leading the play and getting involved is really interesting as well, to see where their mind goes. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen another side. So we've recently, when we're doing make believe play, every time we play, I'm Lucy and he's Danny for some reason. So we had a big conversation about why it is that Mummy has to be Lucy every time. So it's just interesting to see the logic and how his
Yeah,
mind is working and how he's
totally.
connecting things together. And so yeah, I think it's just paying attention in a different way and not just saying, oh, we're going to play this game, but actually let them lead with the imagination. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, you get a sense of the inner workings, right? Like,
Right.
who is Lucy? Who is Danny? Like, what's going on in your little head that
Yeah.
normally I don't get to be a part of. So, and because play is the work of childhood, like that's what they're here. That's how they learn everything. They learn everything through play. So, getting to be involved in that with your child is like it's like a magical window into what's going on in their development.
Yeah. And just in terms of your kind of journey, what have you had any challenges as you've gone through the different phases of parenthood now that your children are older and going into the
Hmm.
teenage years? Or have you found that you've been able to adapt kind of the principles across the board?
Well, I will say that peaceful parenting is way more work when your kids are little, like doing all of this like connection and guiding without punishment, and all of what, looking at our own triggers and trying not to yell and all that stuff. It's an enormous amount of work. There like, the quick fixes out there in parenting, like the 1, 2, 3 magic or the whatever. Like those are quick fixes and they, maybe will get you the results you're looking for when your kids are little, but you're just kicking the problems down the road, because if you are raising a child who has you've done peaceful parenting and they have great emotional intelligence, they're not going to have as many issues when they're teenagers with friends and feelings and things like that. And if they have good self-discipline, then you're going to see the rewards of it basically as they get older. So what I tell parents
Mm.
is you can put in the time when they're little or you can put in the time when they're teenagers. And I will say that I never thought that I would say that I love having teenagers and being the mother of teenagers, but they're amazing. Like they're so great. And I think it's because of all that hard work that my husband and I put in when they were little. Um, so I guess the answer to your question is every stage is different, but when you have a good foundation, you've got a lot to draw on. There's a lot of money in the bank. You've been putting in all those deposits over the years, and really peacefully parented teenagers. Um, I'll just share a quick story. My son, who's 18, when he was about 16, he said, "Mom, so many of my friends just ignore their parents when they call them or text them, and they don't tell them where they're going, and they don't go home at night." And he said, "You're really lucky that I care what you and Dad think."
Oh,
And that's what it comes down to for me, is if you are parenting your kids this way, you will end up with teenagers who care what you think, and that is 90% of the battle of parenting teenagers. So yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, so if listeners want to connect with you, I'm going to put a link to the show notes to
Yeah,
the guide and everything. Do you want to tell them about your Facebook group and
sure.
your website?
Yeah, I have a Facebook group. It's called Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet, and we're just about to hit 3,000 members, and it's a really, really great group of supportive parents. You don't have to already know a lot about peaceful parenting. You just have to go in with an open heart and open mind and kind attitude, because that's really, really important to me. That when we're struggling, we go to that group, and we're going to have people who lift us up, not kick us when we're down. So it's a really, I don't know if you've had a chance to look around it much, but it's really supportive group of
Yeah,
parents.
it is. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So ladies, go and check it out. Make sure you join.
Well,
Oh, fantastic. It's been so good speaking to you, Sarah. I've gained so much. I think we connected a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
not even that long ago. And in that time, I've learned so much from you and been able to implement it and seen such a difference. So I'd really encourage anyone who's listening to go check out Sarah's stuff because she's amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad you found it helpful.
Yay. Thank you for being here. Wasn't Sarah just awesome? So many golden nuggets in there. Just the idea of shifting your mindset and your perspective, and instead of saying, why are they acting this way, saying they're doing the best that they can really change the way you look at a situation, can calm you down, can make you more patient. So it's incredible how certain things that we say can make such a difference to ourselves and the way that we operate. So Sarah has so much to share, and if you're not already signed up to her Facebook group, you should. And she also has a private membership community which she runs. This is a monthly membership and I'm part of it. It's awesome. She gives guidance in there and has office hours in there. So if there's ever a situation that comes up and you're not quite sure how to deal with it, you can hop in and ask her questions, and she's really responsive as well. So I will share the links in the show notes to her website, to her group and to her membership, so you can get yourself involved if you think this is something that would be useful for you. Alright, so that's all for this week. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review, because the more people that leave a rating and review, the more others are able to find the show and join in the conversation. So until next time, look after you and look after your babies. This podcast features music from Ben Sound.